to do really a podcast. They what they call it, the new media podcast. Metta World Peace here, by the way, everybody. We are talking world peace, right? So trying to market, when you look at trying to market peace, or you're trying to market something positive, right? And versus marketing something negative. I mean, look at rap. You got a better chance of getting a big contract to, essentially in my community, I call myself brown, obviously everybody knows, black community, rap, hip hop community. You got a better chance to get $1 million contract if create violent music versus creating something about family, right? And when you're talking about what's out, and even myself, I got a better chance on getting a content deal on doing something ratchet, silly, or negative instead of doing something positive, right? And you gotta. I think what you gotta do is like not pay attention to that. I did have opportunities, to do, a lot of different things, and content. If you look at me, I've done a lot of TV shows. If you look at all the TV shows I've done, right? And but right now I'm trying to do some with social impact, right? And I think social impact's entertaining. What's not entertaining about me, like helping or changing someone's life? I think that's entertaining, right? And I also think, you really can't always pay attention to, what the messages are, because people got agendas out there, right? They want me and you to be arguing, getting upset, saying, "Oh, I think this guy pulling the race card from both sides," right? And you got to be aware of that. That's why when the gentleman hit me with the cup of beer, and when I looked at the media, and when the media was like really coming down on me hard, I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Yes, I'm upset I lost this money, but they're trying to make this a racial thing. That's why I reached out to the guy who hit me with the cup of beer first. I said, we need to be friends. I said, I think we could change the world. And then they wasn't able to use that and make it what they wanted to make it, because they wanted to make it a white and black thing. Oh, Ron Artest is suspended.
Look, man, white or black or whatever, right? Like, it doesn't matter. If you're at a bar and somebody throws a beer at you, like, you're throwing hands. What your reaction was is exactly what any person would do if somebody did that to them just out in public.
But to your point, you got to be careful with the media, right? And then also, it's like, how do we create resolve, right? Me and that gentleman we could have met up and fought somewhere, right? Like, how do we not market, like, I'm not just marketing boxing fighting. I love boxing. We all love boxing. But how do we market resolve, right? Especially our children need to understand what resolve is. And right now, there's a lot of irresponsible people, individual people, because sometimes when people, the problem in nowadays, when people are generalizing groups on both on not, I'm gonna say both sides, on many sides. One person does it. If they're Italian, the Italians, or if they're black, they're Jewish, the Jewish people, or if they're Palestinian, the Palestinian people, because the person, no, you can't generalize people, right? You gotta call individuals out. You can't let one individual create chaos. And this is the experience that people that I have in terms of world peace. I'm not saying others don't have it, but what I'm saying is, how long have you been thinking about it, right? Because I think about, obviously I changed my name, to the word. I'm not sure if anybody else has a question, or Danny requested. Let me give you some access here. But this is super exciting. I'm super happy that y'all joined. I haven't been on Twitter. I just randomly got on Twitter Spaces. A piece. I'm actually recording on YouTube right now. So YouTube, I am on live Spaces, and I decided to really start talking about it. It took me a little while because I'm coaching and raising money, and I'm running a firm, and just started my startup, so it took a little while to get back. Some people say, Mehdi, how are you gonna coach? This one guy asked me. He said, while you're having a baby, I'm like, my goodness, what I go through. I can market world peace, I can coach, and I can run a business and raise my family just like everyone else who has many jobs. And with everything happening today in the world, I think I'm not going to say I agree with um, so some people are initiating, and instigating or initiating conflict on many sides, around the world, domestically, internationally. Um, and we're looking at these things, right? And we're saying, hey, obviously we are privileged, I think, to grow up in the United States, even though the way they approached it was the wrong way, how we were brought here, or actually, I'm not going to say brought, how we got to where we're at today, because many of us, some believe we were here already, some believe that we were in different areas of the world, but our histories was erased and burned. As just the facts. We don't know a lot of our history as Africans in America, or people call us black, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. But with that being said, I think that we have a lot of love. I see a lot of people talking about, especially from my communities. I don't really hear like a lot of racism. Honestly, I hear a lot of complaining. I do hear a lot of complaining, or I do hear and complaining about their own conditions, not necessarily complaining about, oh, I need government or I need the city, to do this. It's more about, I need to get a job or I need some money. You understand? And then when we finally get that job, we're happy, right? Because now that's obviously the class that we're in, unless you're playing sports or doing something, you get lucky, right? And we just, for me, I work with all sorts of people. I don't have nepotism, even though my company's named after my name, but I don't have nepotism. I work with anybody. I work with a lot of Filipinos. I work with one of my main partners is white. I got a partner that's Jewish. I'm doing a world peace brand with somebody that's Muslim, and different things like that. And it just happens like that. I got two Italians on my team that I work with that I love. You know, and I think that's how the world should be. Even though I don't really do DEI myself. I had opportunities to do that. I always turn DEI down. This one gentleman said, Meta, why don't you go apply for DEI? I said, no, I'm not applying for DEI. I'm just going to do what I'm doing. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to DEI. I'm just saying I'm not doing DEI. I'm too competitive, but I'm saying that because I'm also not just hiring black people and different things like that. And I think we all need to take that approach. I've paid salaries of many people's of other ethnicities' children, right? And I think that's the approach of peace. That's the approach of world peace. And people's getting it wrong. They don't have experience. Even if you're running top corporations and you have the greatest foundations, I mean, you might have experience at scaling. You might have experience at setting up a society or setting up, your economy, but you don't necessarily have experience at peace. And right now, it's super important that when people are walking into these different rooms, that they could talk about how we're going to bring resolve. Because some people can't communicate on both sides. I can communicate from my perspective. I can communicate with the streets. I can communicate with corporate. Me personally, with nobody in the room, right? And it's like, if you don't have those communication skills, and if you're not going into a room with empathy and understanding, some sympathy, some love, how are you going to ever get peace, right? And so, from that perspective, there's a lot of big elephants in the room, and I feel like I want to be at those tables with those big elephants. I want to be at those tables with those huge elephants. And it often puts me at, a difficult situation because in my industry, sometimes these big elephants got a lot of, influence, right? So if I'm trying to sit in the room with a big elephant and I'm also trying to get different opportunities where they have influence, it puts me actually um, at risk of getting out opportunities. This one executive told me, and I was very disrespected. He said, yeah, sometimes people get money and then they all of a sudden want to start acting all hard or start speaking out. And I said, I always spoke out. I said when I was playing in my professional sport, um, I don't necessarily like to mention the actual organization I played on by name when I'm talking on different topics, but everybody know. So when I was playing in my professional sport, I was always speaking out. He said no. He said, but you wasn't speaking out until you got paid. I said, no, 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 don't disrespect me. When I got drafted, if you look at the draft, the first thing I did was represent my hood. I put my hat on. I said, shout out to Queensbridge and my hood and everybody. So I said, don't disrespect me like that. I've always, was outspoken. Now, I think when I was younger, I think somebody asked the question earlier. When I was younger, it was all over the place. I didn't know as a 19-year-old, I didn't know or understand how do you organize your frustrations, right? I might have been frustrated with corporate America. I've said that plenty of times. I actually said that things about how frustrated I was with corporate America when I was younger, right? But how do you communicate that as a 19-year-old, you know, without putting yourself at risk or whatever the case may be? And then as a 46-year old, how are you communicating that? Well, as a youngster, you might act out, say something, make a rap record or whatever the case may be. Maybe be a little bit rebellious, uh, you know. And then as you get older, you're able to communicate a little bit more. You're still doing it with the same intentions and the same aggressiveness, but you're able to actually talk it through. You understand? And that's real experience when you're talking about, world peace. I'm gonna bring in somebody else. We got a couple people. I'll bring you back in again. The Den 333. Well, I'll give us somebody else.
Real quick, Coach, if for the people that are on Twitter, where can we find your YouTube channel? Do you want to direct, like, what's the name of your YouTube channel? You said you were going live, right?
Yeah, I'm on YouTube right now. I'm live. I don't really go live a lot. Honestly, I'm working.
It's fine if you don't want to promote it.
No, I do want to promote it. It's actually Metta World Peace, I think. I think it is Metta World Peace. I'm going to start promoting it more. I'm going to start promoting it a little bit more. I'm actually going live, and then I'm going to end the stream, and I'm going to make it live and put the link out. But yeah, it's Metta World Peace. The reason I haven't gone live a lot is because I like to do administration. When I retired, I like operations and administration. And I had people, I had a lot of people tell me like, come on, Metta, we want you to do this deal or do this content deal or do that and do this. And I'm like, it's just not what I was interested in. I went back to school, for digital marketing and business analytics. And I wanted to learn something different, So anyway, that's why I'm not necessarily on, but I am going to start getting back on socials. And I am heavily going to be talking about world peace. But yeah, my YouTube is Metta World Peace. I'm gonna send a link on Twitter, and then whatever it is. I literally forgot, and I'm literally on live, and I don't even know where to tell people to go on my YouTube.
Just drop it down in the comments, and I can throw it up in the jumbotron.
Oh, actually, let me see if I can do that. So how do I do that?
If you just drop it down in the comments, I can throw it up above in the jumbotron.
How would I? So I can actually do that?
You see down in the bottom right corner, there's that little like chat bubble. Just click that, drop the comment, put the link to your YouTube there, and I'll share it up in the top.
Do I drop it where it says add another post?
Yeah. So you're just posting on the feed here.
Oh, let me see. Did I do it the right way just now? I just dropped the comment. Oh, I think I dropped my first comment on my X Spaces. Did you get it?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah, okay, that's live.
Now look, all right, we're about to get there. You go. Now it's up in the jumbotron,
Oh,
up above.
that's great. So yeah, so um, I think obviously there's a lot of things that's over our head, and please and feel free to cut me off if you want. I think Josh is looking at saying something.
Oh yeah, I just appreciate you doing this space, and the videos you've been posting are really good, man. You know, a lot of the issues with X, like Zach was talking about earlier, is the divisive posts get pushed, and then the ones that you post, you know, get seen by like less than 100 people. You know, so that's an issue with social media in general, is that these algorithms promote the divisive stuff as opposed to anything that's unifying.
And I realize that, and you got to think about it. Everybody know what industries I'm in, or not necessarily what industries I'm in, where the industries that people know me for. And when you're talking about world peace, I think everybody should have a world peace jersey. Now, yeah, I'm a little biased. I want you to buy my jerseys, but go get your world peace jersey, everybody. And guess what? If you try right now, let me know if you can find one. Because sometimes it's hard for people to find. It's been hard for people to find a world peace jersey. It should not be hard for people to find a world peace jersey. It should be available. And I think, when you look at, what's happening now, and let's talk about the elephant in the room. When you look at what happened on the big event in the Middle East, around surrounding Jerusalem. I'm not going to mention any of the sites. I'm just going to say surrounding Jerusalem. I knew nothing about that. I'm gonna say something. And sorry if anybody that gets offended by this. I never knew what Palestine was, honestly. I didn't know, because during my day, I go about my day. I was studying digital marketing. I was retired. I was studying business analytics. I was trying to launch a firm. I got companies, that I got founders I'm trying to help. I love watching boxing. I know a lot about boxing now, and that's my day. I go hiking. Sometimes I love, maybe I like poetry sometimes, that's my day. Right. And then as I saw the conflict happen, the first thing I did, I texted a Muslim lady and a Jewish lady, very influential Muslim lady, an Orthodox Jewish lady who's my friend. I got them both on text, and I said, "Do you see this?" I said, "We got to do something about this." That's the first thing I did, and I didn't really understand. Like, I never studied Jewish culture. I never studied Zionism. I never studied Judaism. I grew up Baptist. I played for the Catholic Youth Athletic League in New York City from the age of 10 or 9 through, 12 or 13. Then I went to a Catholic high school, and then I went to a Christian Brother high school. So yeah, Christian Brother high school. a Christian Brother high school. Then I went to St. John's University, which is a Catholic university, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's a Christian. No, yeah, it's a Catholic university. Sorry if I got that wrong. Right? My brother's Muslim, who I love. My grandmother is a Jehovah Witness. Okay, who I love. She passed away a long time ago. I'm Buddhist. I converted. I still believe in God, but I converted to Buddhism. Right. I have a lot of Jewish friends. And different things like that. So, but I'm not like that well versed. So as I learned about everything, and you see how everything's playing out now, we just want to look out for the children. We also want to look out for the adults. You got a lot of adults right now that's 67, 70, not even that, 80 plus, 90 that lived a long life. And now they got to see this conflict on the way out. On the way out, it should be, end of life should be great. It should be like, oh, I left the world a better place. We got to be more responsible. We got to make sure that people are happy, right? There's responsibility that comes with capitalism. There's responsibility that comes with power. And that's how I feel about it, right? And this is why, Are these things cool? I'd much rather talk about this on a podcast than talking about a podcast about sports. Y'all know me. Y'all know I can talk about sports. I mean, you gotta believe that I can do a sports podcast, right? I know a little bit about sports, and I'm very colored. I don't want to. The one I had opportunities to do a podcast, and I said I want my podcast to be about politics. And they said, you know what? One of my friends on he's like, I don't think it's going to sell. I think the advertisers are not going to really support your podcast. You see, or if I want to do something social impact politics, so it doesn't get a really big look. And this is why I said, I'm just gonna wait it out. Yeah, I'm missing out on lots of money, from doing the podcast and all the hot takes, right? But I said, you know what? It's okay. I'm hoping people can understand where I'm coming from. When I first started talking about like entrepreneurship, I would go onto my Instagram live. And then I was talking about entrepreneurship because I'm excited about the new journey. Everybody know I reinvent myself a lot, right? And I'm talking about entrepreneurship, but I still got people asking basketball questions. And I'm like, man, I wish they was asking basketball questions. I have to tell the people, hey, yeah, thank you for asking about the question, but I'm here to talk about entrepreneurship. That's what I'm talking about on this hour, And so how do you? For me, I wasn't getting a lot of engagement on the world peace stuff, the social impact stuff, which is understandable because people know me from playing basketball. But I got to stick to my guns, and right, I got to stick to my my intentions, and my agenda. One is the Nobel Peace Prize. When you got to imagine that I changed my name to World Peace and I want the Peace Prize. And the reason I knew I can get it is because, if you're consistent, you're consistent, right? Now there's a lot of politics when it comes right to the to different opportunities. There's a lot of politics, that's involved. But I don't think I'm the first one that said I want to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I got to imagine there are other people in the world that said one day I want to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't feel bad for having that thought as a child. Two, I don't have any fear in going after that opportunity. Three, I don't feel it's impossible. Four, if someone think I can't get it, I'm willing to take on the challenge, right? Five, if someone thinks it's crazy, and how is this guy that was in the brawl going to try to go for the World Peace Prize? The Nobel Peace Prize. Six, it might be a lot of politics. I don't know anybody. If you look at my Twitter, I always post no circles, meaning I'm not in no groups. I'm not in a circle. I don't want influence. I don't want power. I don't want influence. I just want to work hard. If I want to be a good basketball player, I want to work hard and do my thing and do what I got to do. If I want to be a coach, I want to do the best. I just want to coach. I want to be good at coaching. If I want to go after, different things like that, I'm not necessarily trying to get in and then have the ability to change the course of someone's career just by saying, don't give that person an opportunity. I don't want that type of influence. I just want to work hard and then either I'm going to win or I'm going to fail. And then even at world peace, either we're going to win or we're going to fail. You got to take the shot. That's why you look at the Instagram post that's been going around with Kobe. There's an Instagram post that I think the page was called Best Crosses on Instagram. And they just posted something of Kobe passed me the ball. I drove it, kicked it back to him. He made the three. And then he said, shoot the effing ball. And then he kept continuing to pass me the ball. I started shooting, and everyone knows in the championship game, that's life. I didn't know he was going to pass the ball, but I was ready to take that shot. And I think we all got to take that approach in life. We can't be afraid, whether it's going after a job, whether it's making a child, right? If you don't have a child and you want to make a child, sometimes you just got to, you're getting older. Oh, man, pull the trigger, man. Or lady, man, pull the trigger. And sometimes, or you're trying to make impact. Pull the trigger. Go make impact. What you waiting for? And that's how I approach life. So when it comes to, talking about peace, and people, and people see me talking about, when I saw that the peace board, when I saw that the peace board was being formed, and I said, man, I got to get on that board. I got to get on that board because I want to have influence in Gaza. And I'm just like, how ambitious is that? How ambitious is that? But I said, listen, if I'm not qualified, right, there's a lot of people I'm more qualified than. That's the, so half the battle is won. If I'm not qualified to join the peace board, I'm definitely more qualified than a lot of people that probably has a chance. And then I said, and that's why I've been tweeting that X on X. I've been putting it out there. I really want to be on that board, and yes, we all have some sense of entitlement as humans, but I feel like you need somebody that is not going to be afraid, respectfully.
Well, I was going to say, let's be honest. There's no required, certifications for being an advocate of world peace.
Right.
Just because it's like you don't have to like gain some sort of qualification just to be an advocate. So anybody who wants to say that, but I think that people unfairly. And look, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but they obviously attribute, when they think of you, they think of the Detroit situation, right? I mean, you've referenced it. And so with that in mind, do you think that is like kind of where you shifted your mindset? And with that, do you think that conflict is necessary to kind of get to a point of peace?
Well, I think as many people that can go back to my career and say, yeah, this guy, whatever about my brawl in my career. How about we dig into the stuff that they did? How about we? And then when you look at a lot of the people that said those things, and if you look at the media, if you really do some research, look at the stories that came out on these media people that was talking bad about me. Look at the contingencies and the compromises that they put females and males in. People that had opinions about somebody that hit me. Now, I'm not saying some of the stuff that I did when I was playing wasn't a little bit too aggressive, but I'm saying like I'm not worrying about someone that is trying to give an opinion to get ratings. I'm not worried about someone that's trying to give an opinion to impress their boss. And they're like, yeah, man, this guy is this guy is that. Yeah, man, I think you shouldn't hire him. Hire me. They hire the guy gets 5 million, 1 million, 10 million. You understand what I'm saying? What I'm doing is, not only am I trying to not reinvent myself, but go back to my purest form when I was born, when I didn't have as much trauma. As you get older, you go through trauma. But I'm also trying to influence others. There's people that's maybe just got out of prison, or somebody that's probably just got out of a divorce, or somebody that's had a tough day on a job, or somebody that had a tough year, or somebody that's trying to pay their rent and they can't provide for the child, and then you see them act out somewhere, but you don't really know the backstory. White, black, Italian, female, whatever, right? So we want to inspire that person to say, hey, I know this wasn't your best look. Maybe you shouldn't have smacked that gentleman, or maybe you shouldn't have threw the water at the car, or maybe you shouldn't have screamed at your boss, or maybe you should get therapy, or maybe you should take a break, or maybe, things like that. I'm not the only human being in the world. You see how they try to paint the picture. They paint the picture as if I'm the only human being in the world that has these scenarios. You understand? That's how they paint the picture. But I'm not.
And that's kind of what I was saying earlier. Is like that's ultimately what drives content. That drives engagement. So you have a lot of media people that they might say things that they don't even believe in,
right?
But they know that it'll get attention. Right, and like that's where I think a lot of the problem with some of this stuff lies is that talking about that stuff, it gets them job security.
Absolutely.
It gets them monetary gain by talking about that type of stuff and being inflammatory. And in the meantime, but there's collateral damage that goes with that, and by people consuming that.
And right? This is what I agree. There is some collateral damage that goes with that, by default, unknowingly. But that's why we got to keep our heads down. And this is why I'm really happy that you joined at this late hour. And we're literally talking about peace. It's very important. I know we were last talking about the Nick job, and when that job was given away, I haven't been back on X since. On Spaces, I've been posting a lot. Sometimes I'll take down my post, not because I'm afraid who's going to read it. I don't necessarily like to have a lot of emotional, controversial posts, but sometimes I gotta post because just something's just not right. And people,
it's therapeutic.
For me, it's just like people are scared to call people out. A lot of people be scared to call people out. But sometimes people that are calling, I don't want to mention any names, but sometimes people that are calling things out, like rightfully so, I think sometimes they say it the wrong way, right? Like, once again, I want people, for example, when I came out and I told people I was really sad that things happened to a certain demographic, ethnicity on October 7th. And then when I came out another time and said, oh, I'm so sad that people are dying to another ethnicity, we know the stories, after October 7th, I got pushback from both sides, right? But one thing people can't call me is like, can't call me racist, you can't call me anti-Semitic, you can't call me against, because it's just impossible to do that, because that's just not me. But one thing I want to tell people, we got to be very careful in generalizing, because one person does something and then we start grouping people together, right? And I'm not taking sides of anybody, but what I'm saying is we got to be careful. You can't just say because one person who is of an ethnicity or of a culture or of a faith or of a belief, because they're acting a certain way, we say that group, man, that group, we got to watch that. To be very careful of that. Just call out the individual. If you got to call out 1 million individuals, call out 1 million individuals, because a child does not deserve to be grouped in somebody else's mistake. Because in 5 years, that child might be 13. In 5 years, that child might be 18. You just group this child into someone else's mistake, or someone else's mistake, someone else's slur, right? So we got to be very, very careful. And this is how you create world peace, right? This is how you create it, because anything that needs balance, when you're finding that balance, is going to be a little bit off balance. It's going to, both sides is just going to be moving. It's going to be really, and then it's going to start moving slower, and then it's going to start to level out, right? And I think it's easier to be like, you know what, let them handle it. I'll just go to my regular life. But they're not handling it, So the harder thing to do is actually try to really create the vision and of peace, and actually go after it. I was supporting certain people of a certain party because some of the views, I'm not going to mention no names, but I was supporting people of a certain party because of some of the ideas before where we are at today. Before where we are at today, there were mistakes and different disrespectful things that was being said by a particular person of a party. And there were certain things that was being addressed that I think, us as a country, we liked. And so you weigh these things, right? Maybe you're 50-50, maybe it's 30-70 in their favor, maybe it's 70, maybe it's not in their favor, how you personally feel about this person, if you would personally give this person your vote, right? But, one of the things is, when I was looking at the country and my role in this country as a civilian and a person of social impact, when we were talking about peace, I feel like I'm like, wow, I think we might be able to do this with some diplomacy. You know, and when you're not in those positions to really make those calls, you're just watching the news and praying or talking at the barbershop, hoping that something goes right, or praying that something goes right, and et cetera, et cetera. Some are trying to actually get involved. That's why people say, I don't want to be in politics. Well, why don't you want to be in politics? That's selfish, because if you feel like you can make a difference, then you should be getting into politics. Don't just sit home. Do something. You're just not gonna do nothing, or but not everybody's built like that. Not everybody wants to get involved, and different things like that. Me personally, I feel like I can have an impact just by talking about it, and I think I am, because when I'm talking about a lot of positive stuff, whether it's not getting the amount of views that I want, whether it's not getting the amount of clicks, somebody's paying attention. Somebody's saying, hey, that's a little bit too much positive talk. A little too much positive talk. We might need to don't give that one too much attention. And that's also impact. But I think now we're going to be talking about world peace more and more and more. And it might not get me the opportunities I want, because we see what's happening out there. We see what's happening out there. Like I said, I don't have circles. Yes, everybody know I want to be a head coach of any team that is, we love sports. So wherever the smoke is at, that's where I won't be a head coach. Right. So we all know what that means. But we all know, especially in this day and time, I will be talking about world peace all the time. All the time. And if that means not getting the opportunities, then so be it. I'll bring in somebody else. Hey, what's up? I just let you in the room, baby.
Yeah, no, I was gonna let you talk. I didn't want to interrupt too much.
No worries, no worries. We're on X Spaces, live on YouTube and live on X Spaces at the same time. What's going on?
Yeah, no, I follow you on LinkedIn too, and I see you posting world peace, and I like your stuff on LinkedIn. And I'm on Twitter. I use my real name, and I'm on LinkedIn. I use my real name. I'm in the corporate world-ish, and so everything you said resonates, and it's we've been talking about this. Just like I'm looking at this, and I'm like, why are there only 6 listeners?
Honestly, I haven't been. I'm not active on Spaces, honestly. And then also, I don't know. The title is "Let's Talk Real World Peace."
Yeah, but don't people know who the fuck you are? I'm looking at this shit, and okay, so there's like these fucking like Twitter NFT nerds who do this shit every night. Sometimes I enter. Let's see, there's like maybe like I don't know, like 32 or something. I'm guessing in there nightly, talking about just nothing, like just junk, right?
But but we can talk about it. I think it's a good conversation to have.
No, the NFT stuff is a good conversation. I was
saying world peace is a good conversation.
Yeah, sorry, world peace, but no, that it kind of fits in blockchain with the whole pot.
It actually does.
Potcoin, and so that Potcoin was before you, and now it's your turn. So I'm gonna let you talk for a bit, but yeah, no, I'm big into blockchain. I follow you on LinkedIn, and I'm a geoscientist, so yeah, and I'm not afraid to talk when it comes to corporate shit. People know me, so I'm gonna listen for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna do more. To everyone's credit, to people not really being on. I don't go live a lot. I don't. You don't see me on like live and a lot of socials, a ton. But I decided to just do it. Then the cool thing about it, I can just post it and then people can see it later, right? So that's the cool thing about it. But I'm going to continue to talk about world peace. We want to continue to market world peace. We don't. I truly do believe that I am. I think I am the one to talk about resolve in any room, because once you learn about a situation, people can say you don't have experience, But a lot of people don't have experience, and sometimes people make the excuse that you don't have experience because they don't give you the shot. They give somebody else a shot, and then they say you don't have experience. Okay, great. But when you do give me the shot, and I do learn about the subject matter, you just think about it logically, critically think, and you give an opinion, right? So I think under those circumstances, if you have IQ, which I do, you can figure out what can you say to a side in a way where you can bring resolve. And I think it's very important. So that's what we're going to be on. I see I got one more request. Before we head out of here, I'll bring in the last request.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say is that, as you were saying, people tend to have this mentality that you need experience, which I would, strongly disagree with. But do you think that?
I think I was saying that it's so good to know
settle down there.
that everyone is learning from AI.
Sorry, can you keep going, Zach? I had to. We'll bring you back in, Dean. We just didn't want to cut him off. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. No, I was just gonna say if you think that it's more of like a systems problem or like a human nature problem. Like, do you think that people are more naturally inclined towards conflict, or do you think it's more like the systems in place, the structures, the constructs, like all of that ultimately drives people, financial struggles or whatever the case may be? Do you think that is really more of a catalyst for conflict?
I mean, I think there's many different, I'm not going to say conspiracies. I don't want to disrespect anybody's opinion, because sometimes you might say there's different conspiracies out there, and then that's somebody's opinion. I don't want to undermine someone's opinion. And then also there are a lot of opinions out there. But I think there are a lot of facts also out there. And yeah, I think there's a lot of agendas out there. And sometimes it's not for good. So I think there are a lot of agendas out there that benefit off chaos. And it's just not, sometimes it's not fair. I think there also are, sometimes there are situations where puts, whether it's our country or other countries, that's putting them at risk. And that's things that we don't really know as civilians, right? But I think we have a good idea. And I think, you see the majority of people want people to be happy, people to be safe, and people not to be harmed. So when you get people that's not really taking that same approach, we question it, we don't like it, we challenge it, we debate it, we try to stop it, right? If as best as we can. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now. We ask questions, what's happening? What can we do to not escalate it? Which is why I like certain individuals, because certain individuals are, they tried, not, and then there were, certain individuals that said, nah, we got to get it going. So sitting in the seats that we sit in right now, what do we do? Right. And because the world, I'm not sure if you traveled the world. If you traveled the world, put a clap sign. Just put a clap sign. If you have not traveled the world, don't put a clap sign. Okay. If you have not traveled the world, it's a beautiful place. I mean, there are places in the Middle East that, in some Muslim countries that are mind blowing. There are places in Europe, in Christian countries, that's mind blowing. There's places in Asian countries that I've been so many places, mind blowing. Places in America, even places here in America. I don't know if you've been to different places here in America, like Death Valley. I don't know if you've been to Death Valley to Stargaze, or if you've been to Yosemite, or if you've been to Spring Valley in Pennsylvania to Stargaze. It's just so many amazing places around the world, so many amazing people, right? And I think we deserve the opportunity to connect to the different places, the different lands, different cultures, the different landscapes, and we deserve to see it. And I think it's going to start with world peace. So I really thank y'all for joining. We will be talking about world peace more. This is my first ever world peace talk on YouTube and Spaces. So I'm super excited. And if y'all could retweet, not necessarily for clout, but because I think it's an important conversation. With that being said, peace out. Love y'all. Peace out. So we were live on, that was live on X. This is the YouTube channel. We're going live. People say subscribe, do anything you want, but we will be doing it again. All right, peace out.